Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my friend from Montana for yielding and for his work on the committee. And as my colleague from New York just said, this has been a bipartisan effort, and I appreciate that, and it's bipartisan in the Senate as well. 17 years ago yesterday, our world changed forever. Every one of us remembers where we were that day. It's getting harder to remember life before 9/11. We have a whole generation that doesn't know what it's like to go to an airplane and not take off their shoes, or not sit on board and wonder if somebody is meaning them harm. I was working in New York City in 2001, right up the block from the Trade Center, and on that terrible sunny Tuesday, when terrorists flew 2 planes into the World Trade Center, we lost nearly 3,000 of our fellow citizens. Like others, I lost people that I knew. Some lost those dearest to them: their husbands, their wives, their mothers and fathers, their sons and daughters, brothers and sisters, close friends. We were also moved that day by stories of heroism, and we all watched as New York's finest and first responders from elsewhere in the region ran toward danger, not away from it. In the months that followed, I had to take the ferry to New York each morning because the tunnel was closed, and I think it's seared on my memory for life. The look and the smell of going past Lower Manhattan and seeing the rubble still smoldering and smelling the electrical fires still burning. Mr. Speaker, 10 years later to the day, on 9/11/2011, the memorial at the World Trade Center opened. It was erected to remember those who fell, to recognize the endurance of the survivors, to honor the bravery of those who risked their lives to save others, and above all, to remember the power of our free nation to overcome evil with good. It stands as a reminder to every generation: never forget, never falter. Mr. Speaker, most Americans probably don't know that that memorial was erected with donations from private citizens, and it has been continued for seven years now with donations from private citizens. And I commend them for their good work. But it is now our turn, the United States Congress, to do our part to preserve and protect this hallowed ground, and to answer this national tragedy with national support. I introduced this bill to start a process for providing funding for this memorial and other memorials of what happened on 9/11. And it will provide, ultimately, funding for security, for maintenance, for operations, and still allow those who run the museum there and who have poured their hearts and souls into this to continue to do that. I commend the private citizens for doing what they've done, but it is now our solemn duty to not only honor the fallen, but make sure that we protect the living, and that this site is a safe place for people to go and to remember. I urge passage of the 9/11 Memorial Act. Again, I want to thank colleagues on both sides of the aisle for coming together to pass this, or to introduce and hopefully pass this bill today. And I want to thank my colleague in the Senate, Cory Booker, for introducing similar legislation so that we can do our part to honor those who fell. I yield back.